going on, guys? It's your boy Kev here, back with another video. Instead of NBA prize picks today, guys, like I've been doing the past couple days, it's going to be NFL prize picks football. Super excited. We have never done playoff prize picks here or anything like that. I don't even know if prize picks was around when for playoffs last year. I am super excited to get into this, guys. If you're not super familiar with the channel or prize picks, I go over it, a little synopsis every single video. Prize picks is essentially, it's a betting platform like a daily sports platform like Draftkings or FanDuel, except it's a little different. You pick overs and unders on players, as you can see, like a parlay. You can pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 players. Obviously, the more risk you do, the more reward you get. Guys, it's a lot of fun. I have a blast with it every single time. I like betting on players and putting my faith in players opposed to just team games and wondering on too many circumstances. I feel like players, that's why we all do DraftKings and FanDuel and daily fantasy sports in the first place. We always have confidence in players doing poorly or doing well, and this is essentially just putting a number on it. So I really enjoy it, guys. If you do want to try it out, I would definitely suggest depositing up to the $100 that they'll match. You can deposit as much as you want, but prize picks will match up to the first $100 you enter. So that's what I did the first time. There's no reason not to. They're going to match $100, so might as well take full advantage of that. If you do sign up, please use code DGF to support the channel. We really appreciate it. Really helps us out, so thank you if you do, and definitely get into some prize picks. So yeah, let's start right off the rip. I'm going to give you guys just about every single player on the slate because I love you guys and I love NFL, and sadly it's coming to an end. We're getting into more basketball content and NBA, so I want to get as much football content out as we can, and so let's go through every single player, even if it's a little tidbit of each player. I'm gonna go through every single one. So as you guys know, I got my paper with me, as you know, old school Kev here, never using never typing stuff up. I love writing it down, hitting pen to paper. So let's start with Jonathan Taylor, number 1 on the slate. His projection is 18 points. He's banged up. If he's healthy, I like the over of 18 for Jonathan Taylor. As I mentioned, he's banged up, but Bills, very favorable matchup, 23rd against fantasy running backs, and Jonathan Taylor's been lights out. He's getting crazy amounts of totes. A lot of people think it's, the Colts were saving him for the playoffs. I don't think so. I just think he was a little underwhelming in the beginning of the year, but he's starting to heat up, starting to be the person we know he could and should be, especially with that O-line, and I think it's a great game script for him to hit over that 18, and he's been absolutely lights out. So I do like the over for Jonathan Taylor, again, as long as he is healthy. Moving on to Stephon Diggs at 19 points. I'm going to say this is an accurate projection, especially with his injury. He's banged up right now. Did not practice Wednesday, so that's a little scary. This game is Saturday. It's not that far away, so the fact he did not practice Wednesday, a little bit of a red flag. And Colts D is pretty tough. So Stephon Diggs has been amazing all year. I think he's the 3rd wide receiver right now in terms of fantasy scoring. Obviously his quarterback has been absolutely unreal too, but it's just I wonder what his projection's at. I'm just going to scoot over to quarterback. Josh Allen is at 25 almost. Wow. Yeah, he's absolutely amazing. So yeah, Josh Allen deserves that. But yeah, his quarterback has been amazing all year too. So I do like Stephon Diggs. It's just, I think that's a pretty accurate projection. So I'm probably going to avoid him for the most part. He's been lights out all year, but I'm probably going to avoid him, especially with that injury. T.Y. Hilton, I'm probably going to go under on T.Y. Hilton at 12.5. He's too touchdown dependent for that score. He's just not getting the volume. You'll see him get 3 receptions a game, something like that. It's just, this isn't the T.Y. past. He still shows spurts of greatness, especially on the back half of this year. We've seen some big games from him, which we were kind of expecting more of in the beginning of the year, especially with a competent quarterback like Phillip Rivers thrown to him. But the thing is, it's not the T.Y. Hilton the pass. And I think the volume just isn't there. And to be honest, Bills top 5 defense against opposing wide receivers. So I probably want to avoid T.Y. Hilton or take the under at 12.5. I think that's a good 12.5 or a good under to attack for T.Y. Hilton. Moving on to John Brown, let's pair him up with Cole Beasley because a lot of that is going to be, a lot of their success is going to be contingent on Stephon Diggs. If he plays, I would hate to think Stephon Diggs is going to sit out of the playoffs, but the fact he didn't practice today is just, I don't know, maybe it's just resting him up, but didn't, not even a limited participant. That's just a little bit scary to me. Let me put it this way. My stance is this. If all 3 players play, that means Diggs, Brown, and Beasley, all 3 Buffalo wide receivers play, I would say avoid taking them all. It's just, someone's going to eat, someone's going to not eat. It's going to be, especially between Beasley and Brown, those two. It's a nightmare seeing who's going to do better between those two. And then Diggs, that's a pretty high projection for a guy who's banged up. If Diggs or Beasley sits, because I know Beasley is super banged up right now as well. I believe he didn't practice today or Wednesday as well. If he sits or Diggs sits, I'm going to take Brown. And obviously, if both sit, then I'm definitely going to take Brown. I think if one of these guys does sit, that number will change. Prizepicks is usually a little more up to date than, say, a Draftkings. They will change their projections, change their numbers, so keep an eye on that. But obviously, if one of them sits, I like John Brown more. If Diggs sits, I'll definitely probably throw in a Cole Beasley. If Beasley sits, I might be a little more keen on taking Diggs. So definitely monitor the health situation of these Bills receivers, as it is very, very important when looking at their projections. Moving on, we have Zach Pascal, another Colts receiver. Guys, I think this is actually a pretty good one to target. A small hot streak of doing well week 15 and 16 has led to Pascal being even on this slate and on the board. I don't think he would be otherwise. I mean, he's a weirdly average to below average player to be on this board. Usually Prizepicks takes the top guys. So I don't know. I just don't think, I'm not believing the hype. Pascal at 9.5, I'm going to attack the under. I mean, he is definitely someone who I would be absolutely shocked, especially competing with Pittman and Ty and just the running game that the Colts use so well. I would be shocked to see him hit that price point without a touchdown. And so then you're betting, does Pascal get a touchdown? And obviously the odds are he does not get a touchdown, more so than he does get a touchdown. So I am fairly comfortable taking the under on Zach Pascal. Moving on to Nyheim Hines. We already talked about Beasley. Nyheim Hines. I'm going to actually take the over at 10.5. As I mentioned, for Taylor, it's a great matchup against the Bills. Love that matchup. He's averaging 12 points a game himself in Nyheim Hines. Been really good pass catching back this year. Taylor is banged up, as I mentioned. Might create more opportunities for Nyheim Hines. So I definitely like him moving forward. Think he's been really good all year and good pass catching back. Not too hard to hit that price point in PPR. Devin Singletary. Going to avoid him. I avoid Devin Singletary most times. Him and Zach Moss, too much of a timeshare. Singletary, small guy, man, just a small guy. I don't know if that's limiting his opportunities. He's a very good player, but it's just, and with Josh Allen's legs too, he's just giving up too many touches and too many opportunities. I avoid Singletary all year, so not too much more to talk about him. Moving on, we got Cam Akers. Cam Akers at 13. That's tough. Fairly accurate projection, especially with him being banged up and hurt. If he's healthy, he is getting a ton of work. I think it is a fairly accurate projection, but Akers has gotten over 20 touches 3 of his last 4 games. And, in the one odd game where he didn't get over 20 touches, he still got 16. So that pushes me to the over for Cam Akers. He's getting a ton of touches. I think this is a team where the Rams really did try to kind of, keep him healthy all year long, or kind of, contain him and let Darrell Henderson and Malcolm Brown get a lot of the totes so they could keep him healthy for the playoffs. I mean, he's been looking absolutely great lately. So let's move on to Chris Carson. I mean, I'm done talking about Cam Akers, but yeah, he's getting a crazy amount of work, so definitely someone you should consider. Chris Carson at 14, I feel like it's way too accurate, especially how he's been playing lately. Loved him in the beginning of the year. I feel like he hasn't been the same since his injuries. He's playing through him, tough guy, but just has not been the same. It's just too accurate, especially, being banged up, and he missed Tuesday's practice too, so I'm probably going to avoid Chris Carson. To be honest, the entire Seahawks offense has just not been, what it was in the beginning of the year. More than halfway through the year, I believe, Russell Wilson was on pace to break Peyton Manning's touchdown record. Let that sink in for a sec. That's crazy. And to see how they've done lately, it's a shell of themselves. They really have not been that high-octane offense we saw in the beginning of the year. I don't know what's happening. So something to consider when we're talking about opportunities for Chris Carson, especially in the red zone. So let's move on. We'll get to his receivers in a sec. Robert Woods, great player. Love Robert Woods. I'm probably going to take the under on 13.5. Very, very cold as of late. In his last 2 games this year, or his 2 games against Seattle this year, he's gotten 8 points each time. So 13.5 for a guy who's gotten 8 points both times he's played the Seahawks. Yeah, I'm going to avoid that. Just makes no sense to me. And in a similar light, DK Metcalf, another guy like Woods, who has been cooling off lately, not as hot as we've seen both these guys look, more so Metcalf. He's had really big spurts of greatness this year, but it just cooled off a fair bit, like that entire offense has. And B, Metcalf has sucked in his 2 matchups against the team. I mean, I will say Metcalf gets a little more of a pass sucking against the Rams, as their secondary is absolutely lights out, amazing defense. So it makes a little more sense to me that he's struggling more than, say, a Woods would against Seattle. But yeah, I'm probably going to avoid Metcalf. I mean, it's just, I think it's too steep at 15.5 for him. Moving on to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I think this is a fairly accurate projection. Unlike taking the under on Metcalf and under on Woods, I probably just will avoid Kupp just because it's fairly accurate. I mean, he can hit that very easily at 12.5. He can be under, he can be close. It's just Cooper Kupp. He's a PPR guy, doesn't get a ton of red zone action. I mean, and guys like him, I mean, he'll get 6 receptions for 60 yards. He'll get 12 points, or 6 for 70 yards, and he'll be over. It's just, that's Cooper Kupp. So probably going to avoid him. Lockett, another guy I'm definitely taking under, just like Metcalf, same projection, same sort of situation. I mean, he sucked against that tough Rams secondary, so I don't blame him. But it's, I mean, not to say one of these guys can't hit over, one of these guys won't, but good luck picking which one. I mean, it's hard enough to pick which one of those guys will be more successful week to week, but especially against a Rams secondary, I mean, good luck, good luck. Moving on to Gerald Everett, some tight end action. I feel good about this one, actually. At 7 points, I'm going to hammer the under on this. I'm going to take a lot of Gerald Everett in my prize picks, just because, I mean, I don't even know why he's on the board, to be honest. He's been under 7 points in all of his last 8 games except for 1, and it's Gerald Everett. I mean, Higbee's fine, so I don't really understand why he's on the board or why we're even talking about him. I'm just going to avoid Gerald Everett. That's a weird person to be on the board. Or not avoid him. I'm going to hammer the under. I'm going to avoid anything over 7 for him. Don't like Gerald Everett. Hollister, another person. Why is he on the board? Don't really understand Hollister being on the board. He's worse than Gerald Everett. Probably not going to even talk about it. Such an irrelevant player. I mean, could he catch a ball or 2 for 20, 30 yards? Sure. Could he not? Very easily. I just... Too little of like a sample size and talent, to be honest, to be talking about him. Let's talk about these Bucs receivers. I'm going to lump this one into one just because Mike Evans' health is so contingent on the success of everyone. I mean, if Mike Evans is out, AB and Godwin at 15, 13.5, I'll definitely take the overs on those. If Evans is playing, you're looking at some pretty accurate projections. All 3 are so friggin' good. They're all studs. Mike Evans, I mean, there's no structural damage to his knee, as we've seen Bruce Arians say, but the fact of the matter is, he's still banged up, still very, very limited. We need to know a lot more about Evan's status before we talk about these Bucs receivers. I will talk a little on Gronk in a sec, but the other 2, Godwin and AB, I don't think we can really talk about until we get a clearer picture about Evan's health moving forward. Moving on to the running back situation, we'll talk about Gibson and McKissick in one go. I'm going to avoid Gibson, and I'm just going to avoid him completely. And I'll take the over McKissick at 11.0. I mean, it's going to be a super tough matchup. I mean, I can't think of a worse team to try to run against in the NFL than the Tampa Bay Bucs. I mean, I think of Christian McCaffrey last year. I knew I think he played him once this year and ran pretty well against him. But when I think of 2019 Christian McCaffrey, he smoked every single person, every single team that year, except twice. Both times was the Bucs. The Bucs front line, their front defensive line is so ridiculous. They got Sue, they got JPP, it's just ridiculous. I mean, their linebackers with David and White, and it's just such a tough team to run on. So good luck running on them. I don't think Antonio Gibson is going to be the one to do it. Also, they could find themselves down very, very easily. And if they do, they're going to need a pass-catching back like McKissick, and they're going to need to air the ball out a little bit. And that'll be a good segue into Terry McLaurin, and I'll even throw in Logan Thomas, who I like both of them for the over. I think they're going to find themselves down and need to air this ball out a lot. I mean, how are you going to keep up with an offense like, with the ridiculous weapons and Tom Brady that Tampa Bay has without airing the ball out? I don't think they're going to be able to run a lot on this team. So I think it's a really good matchup for Logan Thomas and Terry McLaurin to shine. Logan Thomas especially has just been absolutely friggin' lights out. He's playing like a top 3 tight end right now. I mean, realistically, like, if I had to pick just recency bias how people are playing, I don't know, Kelsey, Waller, then Logan Thomas, maybe. It's crazy. He's absolutely lights out. So I like the over for Logan Thomas. I do like the over for McLaurin. A little bit tougher to get to at 14, but McLaurin's good, number 1 receiver on the team. And again, how else are you going to beat this team? So, and he's averaging over 15 points a game this year. So, he's definitely in that wheelhouse. I told you I would bring up Gronk. Gronk is, I'm undecided. I think it's a fair projection, 9.5. I think that's accurate just because he's not going to get 9.5. He's either going to get 4 or he's going to get like 15 or 20 or something. You know what I mean? He's not going to be around that number. I don't think he's either just going to smoke it or come pretty short. The one thing that's scaring me is that Gronk Brady playoff combo. I mean, it's real, it exists, and I don't know. We could see some of that action. So I am a little nervous that, if you do take the under, we're going to see that connection. I would almost rather take the over just for that reason. I mean, who does Tom Brady trust in the playoffs more than Gronk? So probably going to avoid it, but if you're going to pick something, you gun to your head, take Rob Gronkowski for the over of 9.5. Let's move to J.K. Dobbins, move to this Baltimore-Tennessee game. Love this game. It's going to be a lot of fun. J.K. Dobbins at 13.5. Feel like it's a dead-on projection. That is way too accurate. Good job, Prizepicks. That's just too good. I will avoid that. His touches are too consistent. They're too consistently average. He gets like 13 a game, and he's fighting too many mouths. That's the problem, especially with Lamar Jackson's legs. You get a couple other running backs in the rotations there. I definitely think to avoid J.K. Dobbins would be the smart play, especially with that projection. Moving on to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, 21-point projection. Very interesting. I think it's pretty accurate, especially seeing how Henry last time against this team ran right close to that. I think he got like 20.6 or something. So very accurate projection. I do think Henry, and I mean, this isn't a hot take. Everyone knows this. Henry is the key to that team's playoff, not just their berth, but their playoff success. I mean, we saw it last year. He was the reason they got there. He was the reason they stayed there. I think Derrick Henry is how you win playoff games. I think he's going to get 30 touches. It's one of those guys. It's interesting. I like guys like him because every team knows what's coming. He's probably the least diverse running back in football. And that being said, he just cleared 2,000 rushing yards. You know what's happening. He's going to run down your throat. He's going to run, a stretch, or he's going to run a halfback dive down the middle. He's not going to, catch a lot of balls. He's not going to mix it up too much. And he's just going to run, and he's going to run, and he's going to run all over you 30 times until you get tired, and he's just going to keep pumping down your throat. And I think that's how this team wins games. So I probably would take the over on Henry just for that reason. Even though it's an accurate projection, this is playoffs. You got to think about it. It's a little different. And I'm going to take Henry for the over. Speaking of someone with an accurate projection, Mark Andrews at 13.5. That I will avoid. I think it's way too accurate. I will say, last time he played the Titans, he cleared 20 points. So something to think about. If you're a recency bias person or you believe in that past matchup, I do think Mark Andrews is definitely able to hit over that 13.5, but I think that's far too accurate for him. So I'm probably going to avoid him. A.J. Brown, not going to talk about too much. I'm going to wait and see for him. He's pretty banged up. 2 different injuries, I believe, a hand and a knee injury. So, I mean, at 17 points, he can do it. A.J. Brown's a stud. That being said, I want to wait and see about his injury designation and his health matters. Let's go to the Bears. Very interesting. Welcome to the playoffs, Bears. Very excited to watch them play the Saints. I love the Saints, but, I mean, something about the Bears that I almost want them to win. I almost want to win everything. It's just an underdog story. It's really cool. I love what they're doing. I'll be honest, I'm probably over on Allen Robinson, gun to my head, under on David Montgomery, gun to my head, but I would probably still avoid this for the most part. And that's just, I'm over A-Rob, under David, essentially based off some recency bias from their Week 8 matchup against the Saints. But I don't know. I probably want to avoid them. The Saints D just makes it so tough. I know Allen did really good against them last time, but still, against Lattimore and against Jenkins, it's tough, man. It's tough sledding. And then David Montgomery is going to have a tough time too. He's been lights out too, but I think he's had some really favorable matchups. I've talked about David Montgomery all year. I called that he was going to do really well at the end of this year, and I feel good about that. But then again, he wasn't playing the Saints at the end of the year, so a little bit tough of a defense. I'd probably avoid those Bears players, to be honest. Moving on to Nick Chubb. Chubb at 15.2, I will take the over. Feel good about it. He did it last game against the Steelers with pretty limited touches for what we're used to seeing Nick Chubb get. He's like Derrick Henry. I think Cleveland's success is going to come from the run. I know Jarvis has been heating up a little bit, and Baker looks a little better. But that being said, Nick Chubb, in my opinion, and I've said this, I don't know if I'm going to change that opinion and change my tune a little bit with how Derrick Henry's been running. But I think Nick Chubb may be the best pure runner in football. Maybe Derrick Henry too. But if we're just talking about, Derrick Henry isn't super diverse. He's amazing at what he does. But Nick Chubb is very diverse. He cuts well. He can run down your throat. He gets out to the side. He's fast. He's very, very diverse. I still don't think I can say he's better than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is just doing something no one's doing. But I do think Nick Chubb is in that conversation, and I think that's how this team wins games. So I do want to target Nick Chubb over at 15.2. Moving on to some Pittsburgh wide receivers. Let's go into Deontay Johnson and Claypool. I'll pair them together. I will say this. Claypool has a lower projection at 14 points. Deontay Johnson's projection is 16 points. And Claypool outscored Deontay Johnson both times when they played Cleveland. Deontay only played him once. Claypool played him twice. But both times Claypool played him, he outscored Deontay Johnson's one performance. So just off of that and the fact he's projected lower, I mean, I got to take Claypool for the over if I'm going to pick any. You could avoid either of these guys. Again, it's a pretty accurate projection. Both these guys kind of trade off. You don't know which one's going to do better, but if you're going to take one, Claypool definitely makes more sense for the over for those reasons. Moving on, the last pick, Jarvis Landry, 13.5. Number one option on the team. Looked really good against Pitt last time. Really good as a force. He looked good. I think he had a rushing touchdown in it too, which probably padded his stats a little bit. But looked good if it's a game I'm thinking of. But it's pretty accurate for Jarvis at 13.5. Like I said, this team is going to win through Chubb and Hunt. But that being said, I mean, Jarvis is still a number one option. Baker's been heating up. I don't hate the Jarvis pick, but I probably would avoid it for the most part. So that's it, guys. I am running out of breath. I just wanted to cover all these players for you guys. Hopefully I give you some good insight on their projections, the overs and the unders, and my reasoning why. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you do sign up for Prizepicks, please use code DGF. I know Matt's been doing the giveaways, so definitely comment on the bottom of the video. Let me know who your favorite Prizepicks on the slate are and why. I love to know why. I love to know your guys' reasoning. Maybe you know something I don't. So definitely add your comments and your opinions in there. Really appreciate you guys watching. Please like, subscribe, and smash that notification bell. And as always, guys, let's cash.